Hey guys, today's video is about how to actually meet your New Year's resolutions. To start off with, let's distinguish between the two main ways that people tend to set their New Year's resolutions, the first one being a goal and the second being an intention. A goal is a specific task. It's something that can be measured or checked off of a task list. For example, you might want to be able to lift a certain amount of weight or go on a particular trip. My example throughout this video for my personal life is going to be to get my California driver's license. On the other hand, an intention is a particular mindset or a method of living that you want to nudge yourself toward. It's not exactly something you can check off, it's more of an ideal or value that you want to move towards. Some examples might be eating healthy foods or using social media less often. In this video, we're mostly going to be focusing on goals, although the planning techniques mentioned can be applied to intentions. This is because I find that goals are generally more effective. Since they're a specific task, it's much easier to break them down into concrete steps. The first step in accomplishing a goal is to actually choose one, and the area of life that you want to focus on will, of course, depend on what's most important to you, but I do have a couple of tips on which specific objectives or ways of phrasing your goal you should focus on in order to maximize your ability to get it done. As I previously mentioned, aim to make it as specific as possible. Once again, it is not an intention, it is a specific task that you want to check off, except it's just a really big task instead of the normal smaller item on your to-do list. A non-example would be to get in shape, while a better example would be run a half marathon over the summer or be able to squat a certain number of pounds. One common acronym used for goal setting is SMART goals, and this means you should aim for your goals to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. I also recommend picking a goal that is entirely in your control. For example, I don't recommend setting your goal as winning a certain award or getting into a particular college, because while you can do your best work to set yourself up to accomplish these things, they ultimately aren't in your control. Another pitfall to avoid is the all or nothing goal. This is usually multiple independent tasks connected to each other into a larger task that seems to kind of make sense as an overarching task. One example of an all or nothing goal, which you should avoid, is something like get all A's in all my classes this semester. Since if you mess up and get a B in one class, it completely messes up your chances of accomplishing the entire goal. You want to avoid the issue of messing up one part of your goal, derailing all of your progress towards that overarching idea of what you want to accomplish. Additionally, as you pick which resolutions you want to work on this year, just pick a few. Don't pick too many. I can't give you a concrete number to define this as it depends on the person, but don't overload yourself. Based on my experience in 2018 and 2020, write down a big brain dump list of everything you want to accomplish, and then cut that by half. Yes, half does sound like a lot, but generally, most of us, me included, are overly ambitious and overestimate the amount of time and energy we'll have to accomplish what we want to do. So give yourself time to go 110% on just a few goals that you accomplish well, rather than going halfway on a lot of goals. Now that you've picked your goals, step 2 is to set up a concrete plan to achieve them. Now that you've picked your destination, it's time to map out exactly how you are going to get there. To do this, I generally use two main techniques, which are checkpoints and habits. To set up checkpoints, break down where exactly on this journey you want to be each month, each week, each day. For my car driving example, I might say that on February 1st, I want to be able to drive all the way to the mall, and by April 1st, I want to be able to drive to my choir rehearsal on the highway. These are mini goals to keep you on track and pace you to get to that bigger goal. Then we have habits, which are what you do on a monthly, weekly, daily, bi-monthly, bi-weekly, whatever time interval you're interested in. You would do these actions regularly in order to improve your skills in relation to your goal. For example, I might say I want to practice driving a car for at least 2 hours every week. I definitely recommend writing down your checkpoints and habits instead of trying to keep them all in your head. You could write them down in your bullet journal or a different journal or on your phone or on your laptop in Google Drive, pretty much anywhere you like, as long as you have it out of your head and in a physical representation that you can see in front of you. And now that you've got this plan mapped out, it's time for step 3, which is to go out and do these things. Step 3 also intertwines with step 4, which is to reflect on your goals and your progress. Besides being one of the best ways to motivate yourself to continue working on your goals, it's also helpful to reflect on your goals in order to improve your ability to continue to strive for them. I recommend checking in with yourself at regular intervals. It depends on the person, there is no magic number. I personally did my check-ins every month, while a weekly or bi-weekly or bi-monthly schedule might work better for you. Just like where you wrote down your checkpoints and habits, I recommend doing this on a physical or digital writing space rather than just in your head. In these regular check-ins, reflect on whether you're still on track to reach your goal. For example, have you been meeting those milestones as you scheduled them out? Or have you been regularly keeping up with your habits? Then make improvements and change your course as needed. If you've fallen way behind your milestones or you're significantly ahead of pace, then go ahead and alter those dates. You can also pick new habits and get rid of some of them if something isn't really working for you or you've come across a great idea for new habits. Another aspect of reflecting is knowing when you are allowed to change your goals. This, like many other productivity questions, does not have a magical algorithmic answer that will just appear to you on a silver platter. It really depends on your judgment. But my advice comes from the book Grit by Angela Duckworth. This book recommends that you don't let yourself change it until the end of a season when you come to a natural stopping point. How you define a season can vary. It could be a literal season or a check-in interval like at the end of your monthly check-ins. The reason I say to push through until the end of a season is it's easy to decide you don't want a particular achievement anymore right at the moment when the going gets rough. So it's generally better to push through that rough patch and see if you end up making it to the other side and it really was just a rough patch, or if at the end of the season you still don't feel like doing this goal, what you want has actually changed. Another issue that may come up during your reflections is a lack of motivation. I do have a video about this, which I will link in the cards, but the gist of it is, 1, to make sure you regularly review your goals to remind yourself of why they matter to you, and set up mini goals like the checkpoints that I mentioned so you regularly feel like you are accomplishing something and getting the satisfaction of ticking something off. I do have a word of caution about intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation that I learned about in my Intro to Psych class. An intrinsic motivator comes from inside yourself. For example, you might like to exercise because you enjoy running, or maybe that's just me being insane. On the other hand, extrinsic motivators come from outside forces. For example, you might force yourself to exercise on a treadmill by only permitting yourself to watch your favorite show when you're at the gym. If you lack intrinsic motivation, go ahead and set up those extrinsic motivators to get yourself to get the tough work done. But do make sure it's not a self-destructive reward. For example, don't reward meeting your exercise goals with eating an unhealthy food. However, if you externalize your motivation when you really did have intrinsic motivations to get something done, creating an extrinsic motivator can decrease your intrinsic motivation. That's why people who seem to have amazing jobs like professional cooks or professional musicians sometimes lose their passion for that former interest of theirs, because now the motivation is extrinsic. It's money instead of the intrinsic motivation of loving what you do. So yeah, be careful about that one. And those are all of the insights I have for you in this video. If you have any additional insights from your own life or cool resource recommendations, be sure to leave those in the comments. I upload new videos every Monday, and I post photos of my bullet journal and notes on my Instagram, which is @studyquill. See you next time!